Welcome back to part 2 of Politics on Sunday. As the battle for the 2027 governorship election gradually takes shape in Bauchi State, political calculations, shifting loyalties and fierce ambitions are already redefining the contests. With incumbent Governor Bala Mohammed no longer in the race and now politically aligned with the APM after years in the PDP, attention is rapidly shifting to the emerging power blocks preparing for what could become one of the most fiercely contested elections in the Northeast. With the All Progressives Congress, the governorship field is becoming increasingly crowded, with several aspirants already cleared after submitting their nomination forms. But among the growing list of contenders, one name continues to dominate conversations: former Foreign Affairs Minister Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar. A seasoned diplomat and former member of the House of Representatives, Ambassador Tugar is no stranger to Bauchi politics. He previously sought the governorship seat but fell short in his first attempt. Now, with the political landscape dramatically altered and the stakes considerably higher, he is returning to the race with renewed momentum and national visibility. Interestingly, the rising number of APC aspirants has already sparked intense debate over the party's path to selecting its candidate. While talks of consensus arrangements continue in some political circles, Ambassador Tugar insists Bauchi's political reality may ultimately favor a direct primary, a test of grassroots strength, political structure, and real popularity. And my guest is Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar, former Minister of Foreign Affairs and APC governorship aspirant in Bauchi State. Welcome to the program, Ambassador Tugar.
Thank you for having me.
Well, immediate past Minister of Foreign Affairs, but you're not also a stranger to politics. You've been consistent in the progressive politics in Bauchi State, from I think AMPP to CPC and now the APC. And some people are wondering whether you even ever left politics. That's during your foreign Foreign Affairs Ministry. But let's start with taking account of your time or your stewardship in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs now. How would you, I know it's for people to assess you, but I believe you would have done some reflections after leaving office. How would you assess, or what's your general assessment of your time in office as Minister of Foreign Affairs, and how did it also help advance Nigeria's interests diplomatically?
Well, first of all, I was fortuitous enough to have been given the opportunity by President Bala Ahmed Tinubu, then President-elect as he was, to help in drafting the foreign policy agenda for the incoming administration. Before the swearing in, before May 29th, I chaired a subcommittee of the transition committee that worked on that. And this is where we came up with the 4D foreign policy agenda, with strategic autonomy as the fulcrum of that.
Let's talk politics now. Bauchi APC political ticket, you have already submitted your expression of interest and nomination forms, and we're also seeing a number of aspirants joining the race. And you are a bit suspicious, by the growing number of aspirants, you say, on the eve of the party's screening. I know what's fueling this particular suspicion. Do you think, or what game do you think is at play?
Well, the suspicion is not just mine. It is a general suspicion by the populace, by the citizenry of Bauchi State, because some people were buying forms a day before the screening, And if you look at the stature or caliber of some of these people, you wonder whether indeed they're truly committed to contesting these elections. Some of them are aides, special assistants, personal assistants, and so forth. And that brings about suspicion, because there are two options that are allowed for the emergence of a candidate.
The consensus.
That is the consensus and the direct primaries. So with regards to consensus, the thinking is that if all candidates agree to support one, if all aspirants agree to support one aspirant, then he becomes the candidate. So a situation where all of these latecomers collapse their support to support one aspirant, it is assumed that it would give him an advantage. So if that's a game that is being played, then clearly, it is untoward, and it would be unacceptable to the people of Bauchi State.
So I think there's a puppet master, behind the scene, pulling the strings, giving these people who maybe ordinarily do not even have the means to purchase these expression of interest forms, giving them the money and just trying to manipulate the whole process?
We leave it to the investigative journalists to dig deeper. I urge them to look into this.
But you have also said that whoever emerges as the candidate of the party, you will not go to court, but you will support that person.
No, definitely I will not go to court, but I will voice my opinion. That's an entirely different thing. What we are asking for are transparent, direct primaries in Bauchi State. Let there be direct primaries so that the members of APC in Bauchi State are allowed to vote, and when they vote, that their votes count, and that result is what is adopted and not changed here at the National Secretariat. Because we've had a situation already where we agreed on consensus with regards to the congresses, and we had we had ward congresses, we had local government congresses, then we had state congress where we agreed on the leadership, the chairman, the secretary, the organizing secretary, and so forth. And there was zoning, of course. So the position of chairman was zoned to Toro local government, which is in Bauchi South. Bauchi South Senatorial Zone. The position of secretary was zoned to Giade in Bauchi North Senatorial Zone. And it was agreed by the stakeholders of those local governments, of those senatorial zones, that these two, because they had not been there for up to 8 years, should continue as chairman and secretary. Amicably, the National Secretariat decided to change the secretary and brought somebody who is wet behind the ears, who has no experience politically, and who had collected salary that month. That month, so he was a paid staff. He was working as a public officer, and he was made state secretary. And the swearing in was done here at the National Secretariat, and we wrote and complained and petitioned. There was an uproar. It created a furore back home in Bauchi, but the National Secretariat ignored the complaints, and that person presumably is the de jure secretary of the party. So you can see that we are going on a trajectory that, if we're not careful, could cost us the elections if we continue to interfere.
Would it also threaten President Bola Tinubu's chance on the ballot in Bauchi State?
It absolutely would, if the people of Bauchi feel that they've been unfairly treated, which is why it's important. This state is an APC state.
Indeed.
And the president has support in the state. It just needs to be harnessed and harvested. And you need someone strong, someone that the people trust, someone that has been consistent, whether it's me or not, in the politics, to be able to harness and harvest those votes for President Bola Ahmed Tinubu and for the APC.
There's Bala Wonti in the race from NAPIMS, there's Shehu Buba, and there is you. And people will say, some people have said it's a 3-horse race. But what makes you different from the rest, and why should it be you?
There's M.A. Abubakar, don't forget also the governor who lost the elections in 2019.
Okay, then. But yeah, there are quite a number of people in the race. That's the prominent ones, not those who, have come behind the scene and maybe have been given money to contest, but or to buy the tickets. But what makes you different, and why should the APC in Bauchi pick you?
Consistency. I came to the House of Representatives, just as you've said, as a member of the AMPP, and then we created the CPC along with President Muhammad Buhari, and CPC was one of the legacy parties along with AMPP and ACN, President Tinubu's party, that created the APC. And my relationship with President Bala Tinubu goes all the way back to those days when I was in AMPP, CPC. I benefited from his counsel when I contested the elections in 2011 as the CPC governorship candidate against the PDP. And it is widely believed that we won that election at the time. And very difficult circumstances where a curfew was imposed in Bauchi, and the governorship election was postponed by a number of days to allow for a concentration of might and power to ensure that the results reflected something other than the will of the people. And after that, I did go to tribunal, so I benefited from the counseling of President Tinubu then, and I was part of a small group of people along with Chief B.C. Akonde, Lai Mohammed, people like Sunday Dare at the time, and Farouk Adamu Aliyu, Senator Mustafa Salihu of Kwara, that accompanied President Muhammadu Buhari and President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. In 2013, we were going round to try and get the governors of, for instance, Rivers, Rotimi Amechi, Kwara, Fatai, and Bukola Saraki, Niger, Babangida, Aliyu, Kano, Rabiu Musa Konkoso, to join us in creating APC. So the relationship goes all the way back, and we made a lot of sacrifices then. And the problem with Bauchi is the people always support APC, but it continues to be an opposition party because of the meddling here in Abuja.
The meddling from the national secretariat.
Here in Abuja, that does not reflect the wishes of the people in Bauchi. So that disconnect is what costs us elections. And this is something that has to stop if APC is really serious about winning the election in 2027.
Yeah, interesting. Not a lot of people know these, telling us how, your history in the progressives and how far you have come with President Bola Tinubu. But when you told him about your ambition to contest the ticket of the APC and also fly the flag of the party in the governorship election when you tendered your resignation, what was his response, and do you think you have his support?
I believe I have his support, because I told him about my intentions early enough, and even at the point that he informed me he was going to make me Minister of Foreign Affairs, he remarked that he knew that I was a politician and that I was a leader in Bauchi State. And of course, at the point that I informed him that it is my wish and desire to contest for governorship in Bauchi State when the time comes, because this was early. This was before the president's directive that anyone who wants to contest an election should resign before the 31st of March. He did not reject that. He reflected on it and said, okay, when the time comes, we'll make that decision. So it's not something that, and of course his directives were clear. Step down by the 31st. I wrote my resignation letter on the 30th and submitted it.
Well, interestingly, Governor Bala, Mohammed, incumbent governor, he is not on the ballot. He has moved to the APM. But does that really matter? Has it changed the dynamics? Has it made maybe the course clearer for the APC? Or would you say, well, let me quickly ask you this. Governor Bala Mohammed tried coming to the All Progressives Congress, and that didn't fall through. Some people are saying, stakeholders like you blocked that move.
Again, this move was made by people who do not have an understanding of Bauchi politics. And when you want to do something, like if you come to TVC now, you want to take a decision about TVC. Yeah. Should you not consult people like you who are working there,
Indeed,
who know it better? So, but it is people that are not from Bauchi State that decided the best thing for Bauchi is to have Governor Bala Mohammed come and join the APC. But if you look at the history of Bauchi politics, you will see that at the end of every 8 years, where we've had governors serving 2 terms, there's always been a paradigm shift. Governor Ahmed Muazu failed to go to the Senate, and the PDP, this is between 1999 to 2007, PDP lost the elections. It was a paradigm shift. It was a clean sweep. This is what brought in Isai Uda as an AMPP governor before he left AMPP to move back to PDP, where he came from. At the end of his 8 years, he did not even attempt to go to the Senate. Again, APC in 2015 swept all the seats in the state. Majority of the seats in the state, including the legislature. And Emir Abubakar only served 1 term and lost the election in 2019. So now you have Bala Mohammed, and you know the struggles he had to go through after his first term. He barely made it back in, under contentious circumstances. And so after the 8 years, if you assume that he will bring some advantage by coming into APC, then clearly you don't understand the history and the nature of the politics of Bauchi. Bauchi voters have been sensitized going back to the 1950s, early 1950s, when the late Saadu Zungu, who was the general secretary of the NCNC, along with Herbert Macaulay and Nnamdi Azikiwe, retired back to Bauchi because of his back problems. He was ill, and he was the father of progressive politics in northern Nigeria. So you had Saadu Zungur there, you had Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Nigeria's first prime minister, as the headmaster of the secondary school there. You had Aminu Kano as one of the teachers. You had the likes of Yahya Wuso. They created the Bauchi Discussion Circle. And that Bauchi Discussion Circle was one of the groupings that transformed to become the Northern People's Congress, the NPC, the first political party in northern Nigeria. And it was also the basis for sensitizing the people of Bauchi, because number one, that school became a focus of these people that were sensitizing their students. And those students, of course, when they finish, they go out also and continue to propagate these progressive ideas and ideals. So Bauchi has been a place where the voters know their rights, they are very opinionated, they take a position, you can't shift them. So to think that somebody from outside will come and just give them marching orders or be heavy-handed and just tell them what to do would be a grievous mistake.
Quickly before we go, if you win the party's governorship ticket and then emerge to become governor of the state, what will the people expect? What are your plans? You know, what will be your focal areas in terms of development for Bauchi State? And how well do you even understand the people?
Well, let's go back to the elections itself. I'm the only person in that lineup that can deliver Bauchi State for President Bala Ahmed Tinubu. You can see my mobilization based on my years of experience, based on also being familiar to the voters. And the voters, majority of the voters are the AMPP, CPC, APC voters. They are the majority, but they keep getting disenfranchised. Behind me, I have the former chairman of AMPP, I have the former chairman of CPC, I have the former chairman of APC. They're already part of my campaign organization, not to talk of the legislators and others. Secondly, we've come with a clear program. First and foremost, pay up gratuities, pay up pensions, because a lot of the civil servants, retirees, have not been paid their dues, and they are frustrated, and they are opinion shapers in the state. And again, I have come with a comprehensive agricultural agenda to get people out of poverty, to arrest the insecurity that is beginning to plague Bauchi at a very scary rate. So the activities that are going on in places like Mansur Digari, that is deep, and funny enough, this is where you have some of the mineral resources as well. So you can see a clear linkage if care is not taken, where you have conflict coming together with the mineral mining activities. And also the excising of land, grazing reserves, farmland, disenfranchising people where they have no other alternative but to turn to a life of crime, of kidnapping, of banditry. This is something we need. We have planned. We have a comprehensive blueprint of how to address it with our agricultural program. Of course, the social services, education, out-of-school children that we have. We have another comprehensive plan on how to address this. So I'm not coming empty-handed, and this has always been my approach. When I come out to contest, I come with a blueprint of exactly what I want to do. And when I don't have one, I don't contest. So I've come prepared.
Well, as I say, good intentions are not enough. I'm not trying to audit your bank account now, but you know, some people say you can't separate politics from money. And heavyweights like Bala, and several others, some people say you may not be able to match them box for box.
The thing is not to match them. You don't have to match them, because, you know, again, you know, we are very careful. You can see that my ministry, where my last official position, is not a ministry that is awash with funds. You know, in fact, the complaint has always been the issue of funding of embassies, our missions abroad, and so forth. So, and we don't award contracts. Therefore, in terms of, you know, clearly, you know, and by nature, I'm not venal. I'm not a crook. I'm not a corrupt person. Okay, you can see my track record. So I can't compete with anybody that might go and have access to public funds and decide to deploy the public funds simply to get immunity from prosecution or whatever, because it seems this is becoming a trend. When you make money and you cannot really, you know, explain how you came about your funds, then the first thing you do if the authorities are coming after you is to procure diplomat.
Yeah, because speaking of which, we're seeing one of the aspirants, you know, Bala, the Senate is insisting on going ahead to probe his management of some funds in the NNPC, especially with the rebranding. That's to the tune of about, is it 2 trillion or 210 trillion naira? I think about 2 trillion naira now. Would the people now vote based on that? Will that really have an effect on the ballots? When the APC is deciding who to pick?
I'm not accusing any of my fellow contestants of corrupt practices. That is for the authorities to determine. But what I want is for there to be open, transparent, direct primaries in the election.
And you believe you will emerge from
hands
that
down.
process?
I'll beat anybody hands down.
Are you not sounding overconfident?
No, I'm not, because I know the type of support that I have.
Right.
And you also have to bear in mind that the zone that I come from, Katagum zone, has not had a governor since Tatari Ali. So we've always had this internal rotation between the zones, even back when we were with Gombe. So first, it was Katagum zone under Tatari Ali, that's the Second Republic. Then came Third Republic, Mohammed Deba became governor. Then came this dispensation in 1999. Amir Muazu was elected governor in Bauchi South, but it has remained there since then. Amir Muazu, Isa Yuguda, Eme Abubakar, Bala Mohammed, they're all from Bauchi South. And this is creating a lot of disaffection within the state. This is what is also fueling the agitation for the creation of Katagum State.
All right,
so this needs to be addressed.
Yeah, we need to go now. Thank you so much, Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar, for your time on the program. Well, that's it. Ambassador Yusuf Tuggar has thrown his hat in the ring, hoping for a free, fair, and credible contest. He believes he's going to emerge from that process. That's all on the program today. You can see this episode again on TVC News YouTube channel. Thank you for